and gentlemen, boys and girls, children 18 plus. You are tuned in to the Loan Officer Podcast with me, Dustin Owen, and a very special guest. By way of Denver, Colorado, he is with me today in Philadelphia, PA. He is the founder and the CEO of Adium. Adium is a CRM built specifically with the mortgage loan originator in mind. He is my new friend, Spencer Doesabout. Spencer, welcome to the Loan Officer Podcast.
Yeah, thank you. So happy to be here, and what a fun place to be doing this.
You looked so happy to be here. You had that like Cheshire grin on your face. For those that are not tuned in on YouTube, you're like, my marketing director put me up to this.
Not at all.
No, this is phenomenal, dude. You have such an incredible story that coming into it, like, yes, you are a founder and CEO of one of my favorite CRMs for loan officers. We promote your product on our show, but also on our website to loan originators, because if I was still back producing, like, your solution would definitely be one that I would be deploying. But your story goes so much further and so much more beyond, like, okay, a CRM company. I learned something new about you. Like, we were turning on the cameras, we were talking about like, hey, how did you get into AI? How did you get into tech? And I was like, oh, you must have gone to school for software development, but you didn't.
No.
What did you go to school for?
I studied business and religious studies. So everyone said I would start a cult one day, the business side and then the spiritual side. So that was sort of the joke, but that's what I formally studied in
And then
college.
Did you grow up in Colorado and go to school in Colorado?
No, I grew up in Santa Barbara. Went to school in Santa Barbara.
Okay. UCSB?
It's a small kind of liberal arts school called Westmont.
Westmont.
Where I went, yeah.
Okay, my kid who's 18 and he's a freshman in college, UCSB was like, Dad, I want to go there. I'm like, A, do you think you can get in? And B, did you see the expense of it? You are not in state. Like, you're a Florida kid. I cannot imagine, even if you got in, that we're going to pony up the cash. Because I've never been to Santa Barbara, but I heard it's beautiful.
It's a great spot for sure.
But you live in Boulder now, which I've also heard is beautiful.
Uh-huh.
So you only live in beautiful places.
I mean, that's the goal, right?
in a perfect world. So you didn't go to school for what I would call computer programming. How did you get into the tech industry, right? Because that's what I would say your product is. I mean, overall, you help the mortgage industry specifically solve pain points by utilizing your technology.
Yep.
Right, your technology would be classified as a CRM, but at the end of the day, you're solving pain.
Yep.
You're helping someone overcome that pain and hopefully have operational efficiency. But this isn't your first company that you started.
No, definitely not.
What was the very, like, maybe you were still in high school and maybe it was more philanthropic?
Yes.
What was the very first company you ever started?
Yeah.
How old were you, and what was the motivation behind that company?
Yeah, so I've always been entrepreneurial. I guess the first real company I started is really more of a nonprofit. So towards the end of high school, I helped start the nonprofit Hands for Others, which is basically a crowdfunding platform to give high school and college students awareness to solve the world's water crisis, in essence. And so
you were how old?
I was 16.
Okay,
at the time.
sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
And you woke up one day, you're done playing video games, didn't want to go shoot hoops anymore. So you're like, man, what could I do today? Let me think. I want to solve the world's potable drinking water crisis.
Not necessarily. So I was on like a service learning trip in Belize, actually, and just got to know, we went to like a remote kind of indigenous Mayan village, if you will, and got to know some of the people there and saw that they were walking hours every single day to go gather water from a river that, the water looked more like coffee than it did water. And I think that sort of sparked something in me and some of my friends, and we decided to do something to help. Originally, it was just raise money to help, that community, maybe other communities like that, and it turned into more of a kind of global effort. We did projects 17 countries around the world.
You did this while also maintaining like a full course load at your local high school. How many countries again?
17.
17 countries. Is that organization still around, or did you end up like folding it into a different organization? Out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Because this was what, probably 10, 15 years ago for you?
Yeah, it's a long time. I continued to run it through college and got out of college and sort of recognized that I loved the technology that we had built, in the sense that like we were almost like a GoFundMe before GoFundMe existed, so to speak. And so I loved the platform that we had built. being in the nonprofit world, you really are you're fundraising all the time, shaking hands, kissing babies, and for me, I like solving problems and I like building products. And so for me, I realized like, hey, this is great. It can continue to exist in the world, but like I haven't put a ton of effort into it. It's been a while at this
So
point.
it started as a holy cow, I'm down in Belize,
Yep.
and I can't believe someone's going to drink that water.
Absolutely, yeah.
You come home, it doesn't sit well with you.
Yep.
So then do you start by raising money first, or do you start by trying to figure out a technology where you could help turn that water source into clean, usable water?
Yeah, start doing the research on like, okay, how could you actually help these people? And you realize pretty quickly that there's a lot of different things you can do. You can dig a well, you can install a water purification system. Of course, they don't have power, so then you have to realize there has to be solar power. I mean, it's kind of the whole. Went through that whole process, talked to a bunch of different organizations that were doing that, and basically was just really vetting them on like, okay, if we're going to raise all this money, who are we going to give this money to that can actually help these people? And so we eventually found an organization called Water Missions International. They had like a patented water filtration system.
There we go. Okay.
And that's where basically we did our fundraising effort. We raised $25,000, gave them the check. They helped bring clean water to them. And from there, we sort of started to create that kind of crowdfunding platform where other high school and college students around the country started to raise money for similar communities around the world.
So this was before GoFundMe. Like this was like, but it was crowdfunding.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you build the technology yourself? Was there an app that you built, or was it a plugin? I'm curious now.
Yeah, I forget what was the kind of payment processor we were using, but it was really new technology. But yeah, we kind of created our own little web app where as money came in, it would kind of move the needle for certain projects, and people could see the different projects. And if you were like on the inside or like in leading a team, you could log in and like post content and things like that. So yeah, we built all of that.
Wow, you did it.
I mean, myself and friends.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
But I mean, you're just a group of guys that just really like computers. I mean, did it come to a computer? Is it like, so I'm a guy, she knows about me, I barely know how to turn on my computer. And when something's not working, like of course it's never user error, but the way I fix it is I throw it on the ground.
Yep.
And then I'm always like astonished by guys like you. You're like, nah, I did some theological studies, I did some business studies, but I'm really good and I love this technology. Just self-taught, just like for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been of interest to me. Again, I mean, I love to learn and I love to solve problems, and I sort of saw like technology as that barrier that we had to climb. And so you start to learn, and you've got these great tools like Google, and there's these online courses. You just start to figure it out and piece it together. And so for me, like I'm not formally trained in computer science. I'm more of what you would call a hacker. Yeah. Not like I'm trying to hack in and steal your information, but like a hacker in the sense that like just really learn to code more out of necessity than out of like, this is what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah, you're a hacker in a sense, like you ask your neighbor, hey, are you a golfer? No, I'm a hacker. Like yes, look, I'm not good. I don't go out there and shoot under par, but I like to get out there. I like to swing. I like to hit the ball.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I break 90 from like a coding standpoint, but I'm not a scratch.
There you go. I like coder. That. Yes, to play into that analogy. So we're talking about the businesses. So to me, that would have been like your first business, although I know it was a philanthropic, non-for-profit. What was the next business that you ended up launching, and was this post-college or also while you're in school?
Yeah, so there's been a lot. It's hard for me to remember all the different failures that companies that I've created. But looking back on it, gosh, I think one of the first things I did was a company called like 100 Doctors, and the idea is we would build websites and do search engine optimization for doctors, and we'd only take 100 at a time. They'd pay X amount as myself and a buddy, and it's like you start doing the math on it, you're like, oh wow, this could be a great business. It turns out it's, when you have an idea, coming up with an idea and then selling the idea and getting people to part with their hard-earned money are two very different things.
Your brain and my brain work a lot alike. It makes perfect sense when I'm laying in bed. And I'm like, okay, like right now I do this. Like we have our first product that's launched from the podcast, and it's a product specifically geared to support mortgage loan originators. That's it, right? And branch managers and sales managers, but it's like a one-stop shop. I think of it like branch manager in a box, right? Yep. You got coaching, you got training, you got resources, etc. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, the mortgage industry is consolidating. There's 150,000 licensed MLOs going down to 80,000. Cool, I'm cool with 80,000. I'm pretty confident I can build enough goodwill with 3% of the 80,000 that those 3% would love to be a part of this community, would love this branch manager in a box, and they would gladly raise their hand and say, yes, I want to be a TLOPer. If I do that, that's 2,400, and if 2,400 members are paying X amount of dollars, we can then use that money to A, provide them with even better tools and resources, but B, run a nice, nimble, but profitable entity.
Yep.
If only it was that easy. If only, yes, people love the podcast. People don't love to invest in their future. They don't love to invest in professional development. So I'm very happy to hear you're like, oh geez, like I had this great idea, the numbers worked, but couldn't get funding for it. No one else agreed.
Yeah, exactly. I think we got like 2 doctors and of course, you know, the people that jump on like a new product first are oftentimes very forward thinking, maybe they really know what they're doing, and so they were extremely difficult, high maintenance clients. And so at a certain point it was like, well, we're having a hard time figuring out how to do more of this, and these people are a nightmare, and let's just sort of fold it up, right? And so, but yeah, you're exactly right.
So, and I also loved you sharing and being vulnerable enough, hey, like I can't even count the number of startup ideas that never materialized. What was your first company that really took off for you, that just, it gained roots, it gained momentum, and you're able to go somewhere with it?
Yeah, that's a company called Lead Faucet. We're basically doing predictive data in the real estate space, like predicting when people will be more likely to sell their homes, and then generating leads off of that, selling those leads to realtors.
Okay, so
that was
predictive,
the first one.
Yeah, is that almost like AI or not really? Is predictive analytics similar to AI, or because it's not machine learning, it's not considered AI?
Yeah, I think sort of defining AI can be challenging because you get a text message that's automated. Is that AI? You know, it's like it's hard
it's
to really
a bot,
say.
Yeah.
It was more trigger based for us. It was more of like, what are the 10 to 15 things we can look for that indicate like a higher probability of selling, and then we would reach out more directly to those people. So it wasn't even really machine learning. It was fairly rudimentary.
Okay, but still a concept you had, you got it off the ground, and you were able to sell it. Yep. How long did you own it for before you sold it?
That was really quick. I mean, we brought it to market. I mean, built the product. I mean, it was within about a year.
Wow, good for you. Yeah. Do you have a particular business failure? I know you said you had many things to get off the ground, but one particular like business lesson you learned because something didn't go right?
I think it's just more of how long it actually takes to succeed at building a business. And I think for a lot of young people or people that are entrepreneurially minded, they say, I want to start something. And really the question is, I mean, A, how much do you really care about the problem that you're solving? And are you willing to dig in and do it for 5 years until you really figure it out? And so, you know, I've been there where I have an idea. It's like another kind of stupid business that I did. It was called college catastrophe kits, or basically I ordered all this stuff and it was like, send your kid off with this kit, you know, when they go to college, and then if a tornado happens or this happens, they'll have what they need, right? And it's just like,
it's like everything but the bomb shelter.
Exactly, more or less, you know. And of course it turns out that's actually, again, really hard. I mean, that's a whole nother, I mean, you got to go and you got to find these parents and market to them. And I mean, it's just, so it didn't really, not much happen with it. And so I think for me, I've been fortunate where it's like I've kind of failed fast and learned along the way. But I mean, if you really want to build something meaningful, you got to be willing to put in the time and to dig in your heels, for sure.
So your latest company, Adium, which congratulations, I just learned that you secured a Series A funding round, which, I mean, for those that don't know, when you're talking to, especially a startup, someone in the tech space, you typically start with like your friends and family round of funding, or you self-fund it. Then when you have some kind of a proven concept, you can go to an angel investor, which is something that I do with a group where we're probably in about a dozen to a dozen and a half seed rounds at various stages. You know, some 3-4 years ago we're hoping for an exit, and you know, some 9 months ago we're like, oh gosh, don't think that one's going to pan out. But so congrats, because it's a big deal when you're able to get to that Series A, because now you have a valuation and the you know, kind of like, it's like you kind of made it, right? Like, cool, you made it. When did you found Adium? It wasn't originally called Adium, it was called
Daily AI.
Daily AI.
Uh-huh.
And when did you launch that company?
We started building that in 2019.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you sold the lead generation, and that was more real estate focused.
Yeah.
And then when you founded Daily, what was the pain that you're looking to solve at that time?
Yeah, I think it was just understanding a lot of the inefficiencies in the sort of home buying process and working with enough realtors. I mean, look, selling leads is not a business I'm gonna do again because I mean, what does everyone do when you sell them leads? They complain about how crappy the leads are, and I mean, and we had a lot of realtors that made a lot of money off our leads, but of course you get some that are just never happy with the leads that you give. Well,
because you also forgot to tell them you have to call them.
Yes.
And call them again and text them and text them again and have systems and processes and campaigns and, oh no, I was supposed to, like, I know how this works because they think they can write a check. And not only is it a lead, but it's a qualified lead that's already been converted.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, if I were doing that, I'd be getting a referral fee. Not you wouldn't be paying me $20 for it, right?
Exactly.
But you know, you're exactly right. I mean, that's what I'd ask people. Is, okay, so that lead sucked. Like, unpack it, and they'd say, well, I got that lead yesterday. I left a voicemail. I haven't heard from them. And it's like, okay, well, this is an online lead. Like, it's going to take 7 touch points, maybe to even get a hold of them. And I think just understanding the realtor persona. I mean, realtors are one of the few professionals that will pick up their phone day or night, not even knowing who's calling. And that just speaks to the nature of a real estate transaction. Like, what's going on is...
Was your family in real estate? I'm just curious, like, how you pivoted from clean water, raising money, and then you had some ideas to help doctors. I guess doctors was somewhat of a lead gen, right?
Yeah.
And then you're doing lead gen for the real estate community.
Correct.
And then when you launched Daily AI, that later became Adium, the pain at that point, was it still real estate focused? Was it home buyer focused? Or is that when you pivoted into the mortgage space?
It was more mortgage, and I think for me, like, what I realized through Lead Faucet and different businesses like that is just that there weren't a lot of great systems to help on the lead conversion, the follow-up side, but also just the real estate transaction is a bit of a mess, and there's a lot going on, and no one's on the same page. And so I saw an opportunity to help sort of operationalize that. And ultimately, the lender, to a certain extent, is the quarterback in a real estate transaction.
A good lender is, yes.
Because if the money doesn't come through, the loan doesn't get approved on time, like you're not closing. And so I really, and also I think there's less competition on the lending side as well. And so saw that as a great place to start. Like, can we help, help improve the communication process of a transaction, and can we help on the lead conversion side as well? And so that's where we decided to start.
And the name change.
Yep.
When did that come about and why?
It came about earlier this year because we acquired Whiteboard. So it was Daily AI, then plus Whiteboard. And we did our venture round, and it just seemed to make sense to rebrand to something new. I mean, so Adium, it's also sort of Aidium. So DM is daily, then AI. So it's a little bit kind of true to our roots there. But yeah, I mean, also just wanted a fresh look and feel. Like, you can see the yellow behind us. I mean, so wanted to just have a new look. I think that was more sort of appropriate for what we're doing. We're trying to bring innovative technology into the space, and so wanted a new look and feel.
I would say, so what's next for you all over at Adium? Like, what's exciting you? Because obviously you're somebody whose wheels are always in motion, right? You probably can't turn it off, and some days you'd like to.
Yeah.
But what is it, I mean, when you start looking out at the next 12, 18 months, what's exciting you?
I think it's helping our customers win. So for me, it's like, sure, we're a CRM. We can help automate a lot of your processes. I think for us, it's really now doing discovery on, like, what are the broken processes. And one that jumps out to us is, for every 100 leads a loan officer get, only 20 convert into an application. So everyone says we want more leads. Okay, well, maybe instead of getting more leads, can we bump that to 30%, right?
Yes.
And so I think for me, it's like, we don't want to be a solutions provider that just says, here's the technology, go figure it out. I think for us, it's like, what are the biggest pain points that our customers are experiencing, and can we work with them to solve them? And so we have a whole list of, we call it use cases, but it's just basically like, what are the things that our customers are struggling with? And as a team, we're creating content and automations and building technology to help our customers solve that. So that's what I'm really excited about. And in a tough market like this, it's great to have a lot of partners that are also excited about that. When it was raining refinances, no one had the time, or there really wasn't a problem from anyone's perspective, right? And so, but now it's tough times, it's like, great, we can really dig in and figure this out together.
What type of advice would you have for all the other Spencers who are tuning in, who maybe aren't even in the mortgage space? Maybe they're 22-year-old college seniors, or they're 100% commission sales professionals. Some life lessons and business lessons that you would pass on. And maybe these are things that you learned the hard way, maybe these are things that were taught to you, or maybe they are things you wished were taught to you.
Yeah, I think there's a few things. Is one, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, again, find a problem that you really believe in finding a solution towards, and again, be willing to kind of spend 5 years really working on it and getting good at it. I think it's also one of the things I've always looked for is sort of like, you kind of call it like that tipping point moment where it feels like you're working so hard, but you have to think about like, what's the one thing that needs to happen that's going to show some sort of validation, or things are going to start to take off for us. And so I remember that with the Lead Faucet, it was like there was a post in this kind of online community, and all of a sudden there was like 100 demos scheduled. And it was like, okay, if we can just build this and make this happen and provide this amount of leads and get this level of conversion, this is going to be a real business. We can make money here. And so I think it's just understanding like, what does success look like, and how possible is it, and don't be afraid to fail fast. I know it might sound contradictory in the standpoint of like, you're digging in for 5 years. I think but you also don't want to dig in for 5 years if it's if it's a helpless case, right? So shoot your shot and learn from it. And if there's something there, dig in and roll up your sleeves and do the work. But if there's nothing there, I mean, don't be afraid to fail fast and move on to the next thing and learn from it.
I love that piece of advice. Like where my brain went with it is, there's certain people who will go out and they'll obtain the real estate license, or they'll buy that particular course and learn how to become a real estate property investor / home flipper, or they go get their MLS and they become a loan originator, but they don't like it and they're not good at it. At that point, don't take 5 years. Literally take 5 months. And if you realize after 5 months you're not good at this and you don't like it,
right?
Yeah, like at that point, I think you go ahead and hang up the gloves. But, and this is what kept me motivated, when I was that young, hungry, broke loan originator with a pregnant wife and $10,000 in credit card debt.
Yeah,
I was working twice as hard in this new career than I was in my previous career. I was making half the money. But every day, if you asked me, do I like what I do? The answer was yes. Not once did I wake up and I was like, oh, I don't want to go to work today. Like literally. Now, there's been times in my career where I had a loan going sideways and I was in the shower in the morning shaving and I was like, oh, F, I do not want to go deal with this dumpster fire today. But all in all, I've always been saying, I love what I do. I like who I do it with. I like the industry that I represent, and it makes it very easy to then say, hey, 5 years. I tell loan officers, minimum of 2. You're a 100% commission salesperson, but it's a minimum of 2 years where you may literally make next to no money, right? Or my cousin who's in commercial real estate made 13 grand his first year, 18 grand his second year. Now I'm pretty confident he probably hasn't made less than 400 grand for the past 5 or 10 years.
Right.
But getting there, and he left a 6-figure sales job in a different industry. So I love the fact that you're telling entrepreneurs especially, like, look, find an idea that you're passionate about that solves a pain.
Yeah.
And then dig in, fail forward, fail fast, pick yourself up, and if you still love the idea and you're still solving for the pain, then grind it out.
Yeah, no, you got to do the work, and it's funny you say that, because it's like, I can identify with that. I know a lot of people can, but it's like, when I started building these businesses, I mean, they don't really produce, a salary when you're building a product. And so I remember, similar thing, like, calling people saying, hey, can I build you a website? Just trying to do whatever I could to be able to pay for rent or, things like that. But ultimately, I mean, that it's a pain and it's stressful, but if you find yourself willing to kind of take that pay cut or to make those difficult phone calls to keep doing what you're doing, then you're doing something right, and so it's easy to be to have that mountaintop experience. Like if you got in the industry right before the refinance, the boom came.
Worst time to get in. If you got in March of 2020, I feel for you.
Right, but exactly. But the question is, like, when you get into those lows and you get into those valleys, like, are you going to be able to work through that? And if you don't care about what you're doing, it's just so hard, right? I mean, to kind of to climb out, if you will.
I'm gonna switch topics. We're gonna find a way to put a bow on this, wrap it up. We literally took down y'all's entire trade booth here at the MBA, which I love, by the way. It's like one of my coolest sets. We've had the opportunity to do this several other times. It's like when at all possible. So for those that aren't tuning in on YouTube and you can't see us, if you're listening to us, you can hear some background noise. Like, we're sitting in a 100,000 square foot convention center expo where we just took down Adium's booth for like 30, 45 minutes so Spencer and I can sit here and podcast. So no, I like to ask this question from time to time, and I'm gonna end on it. Favorite book? What's a book recommendation that you would give to a younger sales professional, tech startup? Something you've read that was impactful or meaningful to you?
Gosh, there's a lot of. I try to think of the one.
The one. I can never give the one. I have like 3 that I go to. Like when people ask me why you're thinking about it, I tend to always go to, in this order: Atomic Habits, Extreme Ownership, Never Split the Difference.
Yep.
Like those are 3 books that I think you can hammer through. Like we can get into Untethered Soul, which if you're a person of faith, you should check that out. I'd throw out Raving Fans. Someone made me read that when I was like 24 or 26 years old, but it still is a classic go-to.
Yeah.
But I'm always looking for decent book recommendations, although right now, because of I don't know if you saw John Meacham today, but John Meacham was with Tim McGraw earlier today, and they did a big interview, and they're promoting their book. But I'm really big into like historical fiction or just biographies.
No, I love it too, and I think Never Split the Difference, Atomic Habits would make my top 10 list for sure. I'll give a couple here that are maybe more that maybe you haven't heard of that I love as well. One is Crossing the Chasm. That's a very famous kind of software technology book. The basic premise is like, how do you cross the chasm in the sense of when you bring something new into the world, you get early adopters on that platform that want to try new things. How do you get to that next stage where it's like the middle adopter, the late adopter? How do you kind of cross that chasm and get them to get on your product or use it? Like, how do you position it and how do you provide value to the world in a way where it's not just the crazy people that are using it in essence? I think it's a great book, and it's also great for, I think, real estate or lending as well, because it's helping you think about like the product you're putting out into the world and how can I do something innovative and new in a way that's going to resonate with people. So love that. Also love the book Amp It Up is a great one too, which basically it's more geared towards like a software company and creating a culture of results and just really amping up the pace. But I love it because it's asking a lot of tough questions of like, people say, hey, I'll do that next week. It's like, well, why don't you just do it today? And it's like asking all those really hard questions, and you start thinking like, I can operate a lot faster and with a lot more urgency here. And so I think it gives you a framework there, which is really interesting. So those are 2 that are maybe more top of mind for me right now. But
I love it.
To mention too.
If someone wants to learn more about Adium, where do they go?
www.thinkadium.com. So that's think AIDIUM. .com.
And I do promote your product because I do love the fact that it is out of the box, ready to go, especially for that single originator who's going to have to do it all themselves. Right? Like this is a fantastic solution, so y'all should check out what they're doing over at Adium. CRM needs to be a part of any person's sales process, whether you're a dentist, a financial advisor, real estate agent, or a mortgage lender. I'm a firm believer in systems and processes and utilizing technology to help keep organized. And then if people want to follow you, how do we follow Spencer Does About?
LinkedIn's probably the easiest. I don't do Facebook or Instagram. I have an addictive personality, so it's just like those types of things. It's like I just know it's like fantasy sports. Don't touch it. So LinkedIn is the best place to find me. And the other thing I will say too for the single LO is we love your feedback, and we have a roadmap on our site as well. So if you have product ideas or things that you want us to look at, or again, we believe in that collaborative approach. So we love your ideas and love your feedback. And
love that two-way dialogue. Look, y'all, he is Spencer Does About. He is the founder and CEO of Adium. I am Dustin Owen. I am the creator and host of the Loan Officer Podcast. That is all the time we have for you today, but we do look forward to catching you on the next episode. Peace.